We're going to give a few more seconds here to let people trickle in. Welcome, Danny, Damian, Casey, Nick. Happy to have you all here today.
Thank you.
All right. My name is Matt Wieland. I work with Recast Software, content marketing manager here. Thank you all for joining us today for the Unveiling IT Blind Spots webinar and conversation. Before we get started, I do have a few housekeeping notes today. Today's session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be shared after the event. Also, within the console in front of you, you'll see some downloadable content about our products, as well as a chat feature there. We'd love to hear where you're all viewing from right now, so if you don't mind, and to test out the chat feature, type in where you're watching this from. We can see where everybody's spread out around the country or globe. While you're doing that, if you have any questions for the presenters, please use the Q&A feature you see in front of you on the platform. We'll try to answer them during the Q&A if possible, if it weaves in well. Otherwise, we will get to as many of them as we can at the end of the session as well. Lastly, we do have 4 $100 gift cards we're giving out today to attendees, and they're for the Recast merchandise store. We'll be giving away post-event, so keep an eye on your email for an announcement, and I'll remind you at the end today as well. And with that, let's introduce you to our speakers today. With us, we have Danny Wheeler. Danny is here at Recast Software and serves as the Director of IT. Danny arrived at Recast with a background in both the public and private sectors, working with from Microsoft to government entities to utilities. Danny has a wide angle perspective on endpoint management and security. We're really excited to have you here today, Danny. Thanks. We also have, yeah, you bet. We also have Damian Salado. Damian is a systems engineer for Gaylor Electric. Based in Indiana, Gaylor Electric is a national design build electrical construction company. Gaylor also serves utilities. Thanks for being here, Damian.
Thank you.
Yeah. We also have Casey Clifton with us. He is the IT manager at Synovus. Synovus is a mid-cap bank serving the southeastern United States, and it has been doing so for over a century at this point. Thanks for joining us, Casey.
Absolutely. Honored to be here.
And we also have Nick Oliver with us. Nick is deployment administrator for the DLR Group. DLR Group is an integrated architecture and design firm serving both the public and private sectors, and they have over 30 offices globally. Nick, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
And before we dive into the conversation here, I just want to make clear that Danny's with Recast Software, and then Damian, Casey, and Nick are all customers of Recast Software joining us today for this conversation on unveiling IT blind spots. So with that, let's dive in.
Hello, Matt. Hi, my name is Danny. I'm the IT director here at Recast Software, and let's go ahead and start with questions to the group. Basically, is full visibility, achieving full visibility for endpoint management, is that a pipe dream? You know, we have these days so many different devices. We've got smartphones, tablets, you know, laptops, desktops, servers. This extends even farther out to like printers and other devices. Can we successfully monitor and manage all of this? You know, first I'm going to go to Nick. Do you, as a deployment admin, what do you think? Can we do this?
Yeah, I think you can, but it's an ever-moving target. I don't think it's ever going to be a mission accomplished scenario. The tools keep evolving, the devices keep multiplying. it just gets more difficult to manage with just one tool. And as much as everyone likes to admit that they can probably solve it, it usually takes almost a college level course to achieve. So it's just going to be an ongoing target, honestly.
Completely agree. Casey, you're an IT manager. You see it a little bit, from a higher level because you also have to deal with, the requirements of the business that are getting thrown at you. What do you think? Do you agree it's possible but incredibly difficult? Do you think it's impossible? How do you approach this?
I don't think it'll ever be 100% possible. There's always going to be stuff out there that we just don't know about or just doesn't play well with the environment.
Well, Damien, do you agree with that? Too much?
Yeah, there's always going to be a few things that are going to be a problem. The ever popular, laptop that somebody stuck in a desk drawer and then forgot about for 6 months. Those are always going to kind of fall off your radar. Things like that. You can get pretty close, but getting that last, handful of devices to get all the way there is problematic.
Well, it almost sounds like one of the biggest problems that we all face in getting all of these devices under management, or at least being able to get visibility on them, is asset management, right? I think, from my experience, especially in a larger public utility, our big problem was keeping track of all this stuff. If it's stuck in a drawer or if it died years ago, we didn't know. Nick, do you think that asset management is going to help with that? Do you think it matters? Do you think that it's possible having a good idea of where things live and whether or not they're online is useful? Or do you think that's something that's more along the lines of a product that's going to be separated out from that tool?
I mean, asset management, I think, should be involved with every step of the way. I think it's definitely something that everyone needs. It really just comes down to how we use it and if we fully envelop and embrace what it can do, and if it matches what our company's envisions for our usages. So, I mean, I think it's a full thing that we should embrace.
I completely agree with that. I think from a management level, one of the things that I've seen is that an asset management program, or really any of these endpoint management programs, aren't worth much unless you've got policies that are kind of, holding accountable, the usage of the asset management. Damien, do you see asset management helping, with us? Obviously, we think possibly that this is a pipe dream, but without some sort of a way to track these assets, do you feel like any of this is even worth trying to do?
Not particularly. Yeah, I mean, you really need to know. You need the asset information because that kind of tells you what gear you even have versus what you're trying to find, what you're trying to get visibility into to manage it. Proper asset management is very helpful with that, to be able to say, hey, this is this machine is, this is a machine that's been sitting in a drawer. It's been reclaimed. Now let's go ahead and mark it accordingly, so we're not trying to manage this device that's powered off in pieces on a shelf somewhere, or what have you.
Right, and then you get into the end of the scenario where you've got multiple tools, right? Because there's asset management, there is patch management, there's going to be security management. There's a little bit of everything, and of course, we'll see some tools try to get all those things together, try to combine, try to integrate with other tools. But sometimes we don't see that happening very well. Casey, what's your take on that? Do you feel like have you had problems with multiple endpoint management tools from different vendors, getting those integrated, making sure they play well?
Oh, absolutely. Every product claims to be the best in the space, right? But maybe we have some older stuff laying around, or we have 3 or 4 different products that we're trying to get all to communicate in one, and that has proven very difficult. And in my experience, nothing out of the box is really capable of combining all the data into a usable format. It always seems like there has to be some level of human intervention whether it's APIs or spreadsheets, to get what we need.
That's right. And not only that, those APIs, what do? Every 6 months or so, they change, they break, they stop working. You also have changing requirements from IT departments or from other business departments. Nick, you get to see, you probably get some heat from management whenever two things that played together stop playing together. What type of challenges do you? I see you nodding your head. Yeah, like I get it.
I think we all have. Honestly, anyone who does anything like this on day one probably heard either your security manager or your CIO or whatever just saying we love these tools, but then it's up to you to figure out how to make them work. But then, like you said, if they don't start talking to each other with a certain point, it becomes that battle. Like, okay, which is the more important tool to focus on now? How do we make them work? And then they start fighting, and then you have to bring in your techno speak and try to make it sound like they are working while you're trying to troubleshoot in the background. It's an ongoing battle that never changes. And like other panelists have said, there's never one tool that manages them all, and those APIs do change quite often.
Not only that, what happens when you've got one tool that's got a hand? Let's just say you do consolidate. Let's just say you found that utopia tool. Well, then you've got a security issue, right? You've got a particular tool that's got the keys to the castle, so to speak. Damien, what do you think about that? We work so hard to secure our environments, and then we find this tool, or maybe it's a couple tools. The next thing you know, we have to worry about the security of that tool.
Excuse me. Yeah, anything that has visibility, anything that's got that has the ability to manage everything. I mean, that's going to be RMMs are a classic target for attackers. And it kind of, you run into creating kind of a balance there of, do I tie my own hands in managing my devices in an effort to keep these folks out, or do we start seeing what we can do around managing those systems? A lot of them allow you to require specific authentication or login for those systems, whether through MFA or through conditional access. Delegation of authority and kind of carving up roles to say, okay, sure, we have this one system that can manage all of these things. Thinking perhaps of one that Recast Tools has long integrated with, but you can create your scopes, or you can create limitations to say, okay, sure, this one system does all of this, but only certain parties have the ability to access certain things, so you can limit who has control over the entire environment.
I couldn't agree more. Having a tool that allows you some really granular security control, and that has not boxed that out and created a black box where you can't really change that security. That's one of the things that I love about our tools, is that they're integrated into Active Directory, so you can be very granular with it. But sometimes, and I'm not speaking like of any tool in particular, but sometimes you will have a tool where, hey, we've had an incident or something, we've had some sort of a problem, it's public, and then the next thing you know, you might be asked to pull that tool out. Has that happened to you, Casey? You guys had to remove tools because of some perceived problem with them?
No, nothing like that has ever happened. It was a big one a couple of years back that had us pretty scared. But luckily, nothing came of it. It's always in the back of your head, though.
You're right. It's something you worry about, especially from, as an IT director, the security falls under, my purview. And I feel like that's just this one thing that keeps me awake at night. Nick, from a hurdle perspective, what other hurdles have you run into where you're like, okay, this tool seems like it's going to do what we need it to do. However, this particular roadblock is going to keep us from implementing it? Something maybe we haven't talked about yet that we're not thinking of.
Well, the one roadblock that we run into with any new device is I call it the people roadblock, where you might not have the right people to manage it, or not enough. And even if you document it correctly, sometimes the documentation, it gets outdated or it's just not done. And when you employ more people into your team, sometimes they're not ready to help and manage that. So you're then stuck doing it, but then other fires are starting to grow and grow. So you start to have to play that game where, how much effort do I put into this? Do I let the security lapse? Do I let this tool not do what we paid it for? Or do I let down the rest of my team? Or do I not? There's always that give and take where, if you find that magical tool that does it all, sometimes it requires more time than was advertised. So the people get wrapped up more so.
Yeah, that's something we talk a lot about at Recast, is the people, the people aspect of anything. And that's a great segue into our next question, actually. We have very dynamic environments. We have a relatively small company. Some of you have very large companies. There's a lot of information flowing into IT, especially when it comes to tracking device status, environment changes, things like that. Damien, does it matter if you've got a tool that can provide all this information, display it, if you don't have the people that can actually disseminate that information? Is it realistic to even expect an IT department to try to understand and then articulate that information back to anyone else, given how much is coming in?
I think some of that has to do with your scale. The larger environments, you're going to have more signals, more information, more cracks for things to slip through, but you also have more people to be able to divide that up and to be able to deal with it, hopefully. And I guess a lot of it depends on what you're considering, real-time tracking. Are you talking about, device health, or are you talking about actual, physical tracking? Where is this device right now?
I think it could be a little bit of both, right? Depending on what all you've expected your tool to do. It could be doing tracking, it could be doing health, it could be doing security. I guess the question I would have is, not only, we talk about the realistic ability of one tool to do it all. Even if that one tool could do it all, do we have the teams in place to be able to actually disseminate that information? What do you think, Nick? Do you think, let's just say we've got that tool, right? Could we even deal with all the information coming in? Or would we have to have another tool to do that, like Power BI or something that can help us, take this massive amount of information and then down to a useful level, something that we can actually parse?
Yeah, and that's usually the case. You have to usually take that massive amount of data and you have to put it into a format that you can disseminate to your teams and to your leadership. It's very rare you can take the raw data and just dive through it and find what you need right away. Most tools out there, I'm not going to name any, but you mentioned Power BI. It's one of those great tools that allows us to organize the data. But again, it comes down to if the people that are using it know even how to do that. And that sometimes becomes a contention point where you have this massive amount of data that's easily readily available for you, but without the knowledge to take it from that part to a great looking report, sometimes that's a gap where it costs a lot of time and money.
Right. And, not only does it cost a lot of time and money, but you're looking at, possibly in other teams, right? Let's just say I've worked at a place that had an information services team. So we actually had an IT team that managed all those tools. And then we had another team, an information services team, whose sole purpose in life was to take all of the data that we were collecting and aggregating and actually turn it into something useful. What do you think, Casey? Do you think that that's something that is useful to ID departments? Do you feel like at this point, or do you think that's something a tool should do? Do you feel like, it's the tool's responsibility to not only collect that data, but also to deliver it in a way that it's actually something that can be acted upon?
Oh, are you offering that? That would be amazing. Yes, I think that would be great.
Yes, I am actually.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, I spent most of my time, actually living in the console doing technical work. And now it's come to having to parse through all this data and deliver, not necessarily reports, but somebody asks for a specific item and we have to jump through all these hoops in the background whether it's Power BI or whatever it is, to come up with the groundwork to even do this. You spend so much time doing that. What irritates me is we spend a lot of time doing this, we get the report or whatever it is signed off on, and then in 6 months they're like, oh, we don't even need that anymore. It is so much time and effort went into the background, not just our team, but several teams. So it's just not very efficient without a platform to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think
agreed.
The biggest, sorry, I think one of the big challenges. Go for it. Cool. I think one of the big challenges that comes up with that, though, is people say, okay, we want information. Okay, what information do you want? Well, all of it. No, that's you in order to be able to produce reports or provide to meaningfully extract the data. To extract and present the data, you need to have an idea of what are you trying to, what's the goal? What are you trying to get out of it? Now, what I've found is often useful with that for certain systems is basically case of, hey, start collecting the data, pull this information in. And now that this information, so this way, essentially populate the database and we can do the presentation, the reporting, the Power BI off that after the fact as people figure out what they're looking for.
Yeah, my favorite request is when somebody's like, I need a list of all applications installed in the entire environment. Yeah. Are you sure you want that?
Yep.
Okay.
And Nick's saying, yeah, because that's who you're handing that request to, right? And Nick's got to figure out a way to not only service that request, but then he's got to put himself into the mind of the whatever resource or whatever department asks for and try to think about what they would be looking for, right? And that's another one of the things where we're not looking for data. We're not necessarily looking for reports. We're looking for insights, right? They're asking for something. Your job is to translate what that insight might be that they're looking for, right? They've asked you for something, but you're trying to figure out what question they're asking, what the end goal is. Run into that a lot. Do you get a lot of requests for data and you're like, why am I going to deliver this report? What possible information could they need out of this? And later to find out that they actually needed something else.
Yeah, there's a good expression that or we'll say bot message on a popular Discord group that says, asked about your solution you did, asked about your question you should have. Tell us what you're what you need, not what stumbling block you got on your way there, because you may not have taken the right path to get there.
Yeah, that's a very common thing from the business side, is especially when you're at the management level, you'll get asked for something. And then in the back of your mind, either through experience or through working with that business unit, you're like, they're asking for something, but that's not what they're asking for. And then it's your job to translate that. Casey, I'm sure you've had that a few times. You're like, okay, let me ask a question. What are you trying to do with the data first? But then once you get that data, you got to figure out something to do with it and how you can display it to management. Let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about things that aren't supposed to be on the network real quick. You've got that tool or that suite of tools, and you've really got that perfect synergy that you're looking for to be able to manage and monitor your environment. But now you've got unauthorized devices and applications. How do you guys what strategies have you found to kind of mitigate that problem, Damien?
So, So one of the things that was something I kind of ran into when I started here X number of years ago was, it wasn't a greenfield. It was an existing setup, from, kind of an undersized department. And there was, we'll say very light management on devices. And so kind of one of the first steps there to be able to deal with this was, first, essentially draw a line in the sand and stop the hemorrhaging, stripping out admin rights, forcing people through, a company portal, go or Software Center or some other, app store where, you can control what's available to who. Let you essentially prevent the problem from getting worse while you're trying to get your arms around it. Inventory collection was a big part of that, to find out, okay, what's around here? And then start running down the list, start finding out, okay, how many different versions of or editions of a given, software do you have, and how much of that collapses, once you get update management in place.
Absolutely. I love this question because of the way that it was written. What strategy have you implemented? And I love the fact that it didn't use the word what tool, because for me, and this might be your experience or might not be, this trying to fix this problem cannot start until you actually have a list of what you consider to be applications that are not authorized or you don't want in your environment. Same thing with devices. And then when you have a list, then you can build a policy with accountability, and then you can start building the tool to target those things. Have you found that to be the case, Casey, that really it doesn't matter what your tool is if you don't have some sort of a plan or a list or a policy backing up that tool?
Absolutely. And to even add on to that, it really has to start, in my opinion, with upper management. Someone has, as Damien said, has to draw a line in the sand and really put out there what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. Then you can go in inventory to know whatever you have. Then you have a strategy to move forward. You're not just out there picking stuff off the shelf, just finding random things, and get your whole team moving in the right direction.
So you've got that team moving in the right direction. You've got an idea, you got a list. Nick, what's the next step? How do you take that list from management or that policy from management, and how do you build something out of that?
Well, we actually have gone through that recently. We actually took the list from management and we pulled the user, I guess is the best way to do it. But we also pulled the leadership of the users. And we got an idea of what, since we put all the roadblocks in, like they already said, like removing admins, going through the company portal or software center, we started seeing pain points. After we pulled the user, we started seeing reasons like they were used to doing something like this, and we started noticing that their work was being impacted in a major way. And so based upon kind of like the business initiatives coming from on high to what the users are saying, we found the middle ground. Utilizing least access policies and then tools eventually that allowed us to meet in the middle that met the strategic policy, but also allowed the user to do their job and actually improve. They didn't realize we could actually improve their work experience by actually putting these policies in place, but in a way that they think they won that conversation. So.
That's such a great way to put that last part. They think they won the conversation. I think when you. Exactly. And I think as an IT manager or an IT director, your job is to, you're taking some of that complaint buffer away from your people. But, Nick, obviously you're getting a lot of it as well. But I think, at some point someone has to say, okay, we've got this middle ground, and then it has to be implemented. Damien, how hard is it to implement that middle ground? How is it possible to find, that sweet spot in an organization where you've got people who are not asking every 5 minutes for a new unauthorized application or just trying to put it in on their own? Is that something we should even be trying to get to?
Yeah, that was something that was a little bit of a challenge. What we ended up doing to address it was, as part of the the rollout of a company portal, is part of the communication with that was, hey, if you don't see the software that you need in here, hey, here's the ways you can contact the help desk to submit a ticket, to reach out to us, to have us go ahead and get something in there, so we can get something added. But also, while we're at it, here is the, essentially the approved, purchase policy on, thou shalt not go buy random software and try to stick the CD in your computer, assuming you can find a slot for it, and call us up saying, hey, this won't install. There's a process for approval of new titles, and kind of pushing folks on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to it, the term strategy works so well because there really isn't a one-size-fits-all solution for any of our organizations, right? The strategy portion is you work with your business units, you get that list, you create those policies, you get upper management buy-in and support, and hopefully, have them be an active participant in the process of conveying to users that there's a reason and a rhyme for why we do this. And I also feel like, we've kind of come to the conclusion that while there's a lot, there's not really any one tool that's going to get us where we want to go, there's definitely a suite of tools, or at least a few tools that we can use to cover all of our bases. And as long as they're backed up with strategy and policy, I think we can create a scenario where we can maybe not do everything in the environment perfectly, but we can certainly cover enough of it where we feel secure and we feel like the end user's needs are being met. Everybody agree with that?
Yep,
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, guys, I really appreciate the conversation. I think I'm going to hand it back over to Matt.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Danny. And thank you all. A little bit about Recast for all of you here today. Starting from the creation of our community right-click tools, which many of you probably encountered us first by using those community tools, our goal has always been to empower sysadmins to make their lives easier. We have over 70,000 sysadmins using our community tools every month, and over 1,000 companies using our paid tools across the globe. We have 4.9 stars out of 5 through Gartner, and we're proud of that rating and think that they speak for the quality of the products. Beyond the products, we're also really proud of the support we provide to our customers. We have a strong support team and take great pride in that. A little overview about the products we do offer. If you look around the very perimeter of this circle, it shows you kind of which space these products operate within. Within the systems management space, we offer right-click tools, our founding product, and endpoint insights, a second product within that space. Right-click tools helps reduce overall enterprise risk, ensures compliance and encryption, privileged access, software updates, and much, much more. Endpoint Insights gives you access to some critical endpoint data that's not natively available in ConfigMan or other ITSMs. Within the third-party patching space, we offer Application Manager and Liquid's Workspace, Liquid's Access Manager, and Release and Patch Management. Liquid is a recent acquisition that we just announced. We'll be having much more to come on that acquisition, and watch your inboxes for some upcoming webinars about patch management and Liquid and our product Application Manager at Recast Software. We're pretty excited about some of what we'll be able to share over the coming weeks and months. With Application Manager specifically by Recast, you can take control of your entire application lifecycle from installation to updates to uninstallation. And then finally, within the privileged access management space, we offer Privilege Manager. Privilege Manager enables tighter security policies for all devices and streamlined workflows as well. Let's dive into any questions. If you have any questions in the Q&A, now is a good time to jump in and post those here. Give you guys a few seconds. I don't think I'm seeing any at this time. So while I'm giving you guys a few seconds, what I'll do then is jump to this question. So you have a few minutes to enter a Q&A. And at the same time, if you're interested in a customized demo for your environment, addressing the visibility challenges, please let us know via this poll on your screen here. You can click A or B. Give you guys maybe 30 to 45 seconds here to type in any questions and or answer this question here. Are you interested in a customized demo addressing the visibility challenges within your environment? just want to note, I see a note in the main chat here for all of our presenters today. Good discussion. Asked he had to drop out, but thanked everyone and said, please, more of these types of discussions. Right, not seeing anything in the Q&A there. We'll move on. Reminder for the giveaway. We're giving away 4 $100 gift cards to our Recast merchandise store to the attendees today. We'll email the 4 winners, so please watch your inboxes to see if you are one of those 4. We'll be emailing those to you along with a copy of this recording, so everybody will be receiving a copy of the recording via email as well. And with that, thank you all for coming today, everybody who's here. And thank you again, Damian, Nick, and Casey for joining us. We really appreciate you guys sharing your experiences within your companies. Again, we're a company, of and for and by sysadmins and IT leaders. So we really appreciate your guys' time and insights. And everyone else, thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.